Hello, my ghouls and geeks. Welcome back to Podcast for the Recently Released. I'm your host, Louis Stardust.
And it's your boy,
Joe Batista. That's
that guy.
Yeah. I am not feeling very well today, so if I am not my usual, bantery / cunty self, then that is why. I've been feeling well the past few days. That's why we're also a little delayed with posting, but either way, we're getting stuff out every week, so I'm pretty stoked about that. Today, we're going to be talking about a few things we got to watch this week. We've been doing a lot of, watching reviews. Instead of, doing more in-depth stuff, we're just watching a lot of movies and TV and just binging through stuff at the moment.
Yeah, especially because there's not much new stuff to play. There's not places to go. There's not a lot of that stuff, so.
Yeah. Do you want to start off with what you want to talk about?
Yeah, okay. So the three main things we are going to be talking about today are going to be the movie Sea Fever, came out in 2019. The TV show Trials of Gabriel Fernandez.
Oh my god.
2020 docu-series. And also a movie called Extraordinary from 2019.
Do it in that order.
What? The order I just did?
Yeah.
That's how I had it written.
Yeah, because I think the Gabriel Fernandez story makes me so mad that we need to end on a happy note.
That's why I picked Extraordinary to begin with.
Perfect. All right,
we needed a happy note.
Let's talk about Sea Fever now.
All right, now Sea Fever is a movie from 2019. Now this is a movie about a marine biology student, and she gets to endure a week on a ragged fishing boat, and she's kind of at odds with the crew, but they're out in the deep Atlantic, and basically something gets caught onto the boat, and there's a strange infection on the boat, and that's kind of where they leave you at the trailer, that something comes aboard the boat or infects the people on the boat or something like that. Now, what do you think of this movie?
I really liked it. I'm a fan of any sea-related horror kind of movie. That's why we played Man and Madame. We didn't finish it, but I liked the concept of it because it's out at sea and it's a story in that aspect. The way it made it seem kind of in the trailer, I thought it was going to be more of a haunting on the boat almost.
Yeah, that's how they made it seem a little bit.
But it's
at
more
first,
of a plague of something from a species they don't know of, essentially. Yeah. So I would give it a 7 out of 10, just to throw that out there for how I feel about it. I don't think there was much wrong with the movie. There's a couple parts that were a little slow, and I really wish they maybe got a little bit more into the lore of the creature, but then again, they don't really know what's going on. The ending was a little bit meh for me, but I really liked pretty much all the characters in it. I think they all had their own roles that made sense. It wasn't just it was somebody who was just there to be there. I liked her whole, I'm a marine biologist and we have to make sure we're not infecting other people aspect of it. Feels very real.
Yeah, she tries to be real smart about it, and I guess they try to make it although she's a student, she's super on to this whole issue, basically. And the crew is kind of wild. Some of them are a little more mellow, but then a couple of the people in the crew, especially Captain and his wife, are
awful. They
shot
suck.
Out.
I loved one of my favorite parts of the movie is when they see that there's another boat in the ocean, because they get stuck at one point, right?
Well, basically they are going for a fishing trip to catch some stuff, and basically they get put off course because of some water that they can't go in at the time. It's an exclusion zone. And he basically is we got some bad storms coming, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And he's I'm going for it. So he goes for it, and sure enough,
because he wants the money.
They get stuck out there, and this sea monster thing attaches to the ship, and they don't know what's going on, but then they start investigating and shit like that, and then they start to realize what's happening.
Yeah.
Which is pretty weird, because they go down, and basically the way they find out that something's clinging to the ship is there's these soft spots in the bottom of the ship on the walls, and dude just straight up puts his hand right up on it, all up in it, the whole deal, digging in.
He's fingering the wall. And
yeah, it's so gross.
It makes me so mad because You know they have rubber gloves and shit.
Yeah.
You know they have big
Tools.
fisherman's gloves and tools and shit. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, you're going to stick your hand in a subject like that where you don't know? If I see anything odd, I'm like, I'm putting gloves on first. Because what if it's, like, something crazy? You don't know.
You would think. And, like, especially when they start, like, pulling the wall out and there's this gross, like, butthole monster thing in the
thing
wall.
was awful.
That was pretty nasty. But then basically the biology student, they're like, yo, jump overboard, go do your little diving thing and check it out. And she goes to check it out, and there's tentacles everywhere.
They're like jellyfish tentacle monster things.
Yeah, and they're like connected to
glowing.
one giant monster, I guess,
Yeah.
but they don't show what it looks like.
No, it's like a big glowing, like, luminescent kind of thing.
Yeah, so right away she's like, hell nah, dog, I'm out of there. And
Yeah.
she gets out of the water, and shit starts going down. They find another ship off in the distance that they go to
This
check
is my
out.
favorite part.
And everybody's dead.
Yeah, but the way that everybody's did is, like, throats are slit. There's a guy who has
His eyeballs ripped
his
out.
eyeballs ripped out and stuff, and you're like, what the fuck? And it kind of, like, plays on the fact that maybe, you know, this was because of what's going on in their ship, but they don't discuss that. The captain is like, we're not going to tell anybody what we found in this boat, and
Yeah.
he dips out.
He just blames it on sea fever.
Yeah, the whole big thing. But you wind up learning it's because they were infected, because quickly after we lose one of our main characters to...
Yeah, right
Yeah.
off the jump, the first main death of a character in this
Amazing.
is great. Like, full-blown, like, sci-fi practical effects. Like,
I didn't think it was
eyeball
gonna happen.
explosions.
Yeah,
like,
the way that...
great.
Yeah, especially because it's the first death, but the way it happens is she's looking in his eye and she sees, like, a little parasite in there.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, you're just seeing it, like, whatever. But then, like, literally moments later, his eyes just fucking explode out of the head. Like, so crazy. And then a couple other people get infected. So you see them get infected in different ways, which I think is really interesting. Obviously, it's not one particular thing. Like, obviously, they're parasites, yes, but the way that they get infected is through the water and stuff. But, yeah, I mean, I really liked it. The ending was, like, okay.
Yeah, I thought the ending was very okay. They kind of, I don't know, I might have to rewatch, but I kind of think they hint at the end that it's not a happy ending for the survivor type deal.
Yeah, I don't know.
They almost hint that maybe he's not going to make it. But at the same time, while showing you salvation. Because I thought, and what my father had brought up to me, because he also watched it, was that at the end it looked like they show the boat coming up to rescue the survivor, and then at the end, they just show it disappearing.
Yeah, it looked like it was in the same spot. It didn't look like it came forward or anything.
Yeah,
You know
it
what I
was
mean?
like, you know.
Like, do they know what's going on? They said they don't care. They're not going that far. Is there something wrong with that boat? Is it stuck? Is it just his illusion? We don't know. What if he's got sea fever? Ooh.
Ooh,
But
a sea favor?
the one lady, I have a cough drop in my mouth. I'm sorry. The one lady who owns the boat, she dips out at one point in a rowboat, and then we never, like, hear from her again. We never learn what.
Yeah, and I guess they just hint that, like, yeah, maybe she made it, maybe not. Whatever.
Yeah, but if she makes it, does she pass on a virus? If she has it, like, what is
If
that
she's got the
story?
virus, that's another thing. And then the virus is basically like, yeah, all these little parasites, like, infecting all up in your body. And then you die. Or go crazy, or... I don't know. It's pretty epic, though. Pretty cool ways that they start going crazy in there. It's pretty cool. They keep it kind of claustrophobic, but still not too claustrophobic, you know? I liked it. It's pretty enjoyable
Old
to watch.
lady on there is...
The old lady, yeah, she's like a real badass. Her name is Alwyn Fleur. Basically, a couple people in this movie look like main stars that we know in a lot of movies, like the main lady that's captain of the boat, Connie Nielsen. She looks very much like Charlize Theron, basically. And then the other guy, Dougray Scott, I think it is, who's the captain, pilot, the driver of the boat, not necessarily the captain. He looks like Gerard Butler or something.
Yeah, he's the fucking dick, though. I just can't...
Yeah.
He's the worst. Yeah, I guess it's like, we always say, like, oh, it's off-brand this, or...
Yeah, like bootleg versions of that.
Yeah, because
And then
so
the main girl, the biology student, she looks like a young version of the girl from True Blood and Daredevil.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know her name.
I don't know who that is.
girl from Daredevil. She was also a vampire.
So what's your rating?
I'm going to give it I would say a solid 7. I'm with you on this one this time.
Cool.
This time, I'm going to give it a 7 along with you.
Yeah, I thought it was worth watching. Small critiques and things I would like to change, but I thought it was solid all the way through.
Yeah, and we don't really go into a lot of the details of how a lot of stuff plays out and cool things that they kind of speculate on. So, like, that's a lot of fun to watch. Those are the parts that kind of get you through the movie, is all that stuff happening is really cool. So, it's definitely fun to watch.
I never put up our cool background.
What, our background?
Yeah.
We'll put it up.
Right. There we go. There it is.
Well, no, there's our background. I'll just... No, I don't think I could impose it on there, especially if, like, the mic's in the way. I'm not good at that kind of stuff.
No.
But that's just what it is.
This is just real live art. This is what happens. Can we talk about the Gabriel Fernandez stuff now?
Yeah, I'll let you start into that a little bit.
So we love documentaries. We like true crime stories. We watched, what was it? Abducted in Plain Sight a while ago, I think we talked about on here. And the whole time, all I could think about was, I just want to beat the shit out of the parents.
Yeah.
And I feel this way about the Gabriel Fernandez story, 100%. Now, I have a couple things that I don't like about this. It's a 6-part documentary all about a 8-year-old boy who was tortured and abused by his mother and her boyfriend. He had 2 siblings at the time, and it doesn't seem like they got much abuse, if any. He was primarily the subject of the abuse. He got locked into a cabinet at night, for example, where he would be sometimes like hogtied or tied up in a bandana in his mouth. They would put cigarette burns on him. They would beat the shit out of this
Make
kid.
him eat cat shit.
Make him eat cat shit, cat litter, like do all these weird things.
Yeah.
And so we're only scratching the surface of the trauma that this boy went through, but all I want to do is just beat the shit out of these people, like immediately.
Yeah.
I can't ever imagine wanting to hurt someone like this.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So we get introduced right away into the story, but it's what's weird for me is that it focuses so much on the LA Times, and I feel like the LA Times didn't really have a prominent role in the story.
Yeah, they went out of their way in this. Just as a heads up for this, there is politics in it. Like, although this is about some issues within the
criminal justice, like stuff with
criminal justice system, issues with social workers, issues with all that stuff, which is understandable and that is political to talk about. But at the same time, they go out of their way to do like a full-blown tribute and endorsement for the LA Times on how it needs to be, supported financially and how we need to be able to solve crimes with them. But if you watch this documentary, by the end of it, you can honestly say the New York Times had nothing to do at all, not in one single mild-mannered bit, have anything to do with the solving of this crime.
Well, the thing is, it's like 6 episodes.
Yeah.
An hour long each. I don't want to waste the whole time listening to like the LA Times bullshit. I pointed to, I was like, they're not even saying anything. I'm fast forwarding.
They even only had a couple clips of them just covering it like a regular news channel.
I would have liked it to be like one episode about the social workers, one episode about the kids, which is what they kind of did. But at the same time, like maybe half of that was really about those subjects because they kept going back to the LA Times and other shit that didn't make sense to me. I wanted to. And, like, I don't want all the details on this case at the same time because it's so fucked up and I really don't need to hear all of it. But if you're going to make a documentary on this story, like, it's weird to me that they took so long to talk about the other kids, to get fully into the abuse and the trauma this kid suffered. Yeah,
like, they start to introduce the situation with Gabriel, make you start to feel for him and the whole situation. They show you the guy who's after the whole thing. And then they'll trail off for 45 minutes about race disparities in the city. And you're like, dude, you do that first. Then you lead into this whole thing. Don't wrap me in and then dive off about the LA Times or this or that. It's very, the way they stacked it is...
And those things you could totally include all of that.
And they could fit well, but it doesn't. It breaks you out of the whole thing for a second. You're like, dude.
And I want to be immersed in the story. So, to trail back on, like, this documentary itself... It starts off right away with a 911 call about the Gabriel Fernandez, that he's passed out and he's not breathing. And I believe there was 2 911 calls, if I'm correct. I don't remember. I believe one was the mom called, and then the boyfriend called and said that he wasn't breathing and he was doing CPR on him.
Yeah, and it was like...
But their stories didn't match.
No, they're not the same.
No.
Right away they play 2 calls and one's different. One's like the kid was playing with the brother and fell, and the other one was like...
I think
fell in the bathtub.
Yeah,
or something.
he fell in the bathtub. That's what they were saying. But when they got there, the EMTs are, rushing to save this kid because he's not breathing. And the guy's on the boyfriend's on the phone saying he's giving CPR, but he's clearly talking the whole time. So, like, how are you giving CPR if you're having a full conversation with them? Like, unless somebody else is.
And then they show up and he wasn't still giving CPR. He's just waiting for them.
Yeah, he was just waiting for them. And then when they came in, they noticed the state of the house they were in. Because they're in, like, a inner city house where it's obviously not the best neighborhood. But they said when they first rolled in, their other kid was outside in the middle of it was, like, super early in the morning, so I think it went from late night to early AM for them. I don't remember what the time was.
It was like 2 a.m. or something.
Yeah, so the kid was outside by himself, so they were like, this is kind of weird. And then he led them to the house where the brother was, obviously on the floor, and the state of the house was so bad, and you see it in the photos. There's like stuff destroyed everywhere, filth, blood everywhere.
Oh, yeah,
the amount
of
blood that is spread everywhere. And obviously these EMTs, I think it was like the fire department came and stuff, they have to just focus on saving this kid where they can't fully take in the situation that's going around them, because obviously this isn't a situation where the kid just got hurt. Like, the house is so fucked up, this is a situation of, like, neglect to some degree. So they bring the kid to the hospital, and they talk about the fact that his body is so... Like, it's so hard to talk about this, and you can see photos in the documentary, and it, like, made me cry. I was so uncomfortable. But it's on his neck, he has, like chokehold things, like, and bruising, and also, like, kind of burn patterns on it.
Yeah, all kinds of
stuff. It looks
stuff.
like they, like, rubbed his skin and then ripped the skin off, kind of. Like, when you get that, like, fresh layer on there.
Yeah, he had a lot of, like, peeling skin on his face, scabbing.
He had on his face. They said his brain was, or his head was so caved in that you could feel, they said, part of his brain, I think it was, or it was so thin.
You could feel the bone, because the bone was all broken into little pieces. It was like, they said it was like a car window, like how it has that crack.
The lady said the texture was like a Rice Krispie, yeah. And that's where I was like, damn, this is bad. So then they showed more photos, and it was like his legs were all cut up and beat up. He had cigarette burns all over him. He had fractures, like his fingers looked all broken. They had like all these things just completely wrong with this kid. And you're like, holy shit, he was just beaten up so bad, and this is the time. But then you watch the show and you see that it's not the first time that something was to that degree.
Yeah.
And it's so shocking to me that there wasn't something done before that. And obviously, like, when people make documentaries like this, it's in favor of whoever the documentary subject is on. We know that. So,
definitely.
Obviously, the things could have been done, and we might not know 100% of that. But it doesn't make sense to me how you can have, for example, like, the main person who is calling, like, the Child Protective Services is his teacher. His teacher's noticing bruises on him.
Yeah.
He says something to her one day where he makes a comment saying, is it normal for your parent to hit you with a belt? And she's like, well, yeah, like, what happened? Like, why don't you talk to me about it? Because, when we were kids, our parents probably beat us with belts too, and that was just fucking normal back then. And he tells her that he's getting beat with the metal part of the belt, which is, like, not how you fucking do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's not a normal thing. And, so she gets concerned, and she calls CPS, and then he comes back, and his head's all shaved at one point, and you can see that they cut it so close to his head.
It's all patchy and cut up and stuff.
He has cuts all over his head. He has cigarette burns on the back of his head, and she calls them again. She's like the only one who's consistently calling them to check on there.
Yeah.
But because the woman is coming to the house, a social worker, he's getting abused every time that happens, even worse, so he doesn't want to talk to his teacher about it anymore, and he becomes very angry and very not himself, and he's such a, fun, he's a kid, he's 8 years old, so she's consistently the one who's trying so hard, and I feel for her, because at that situation, it's like, what do? If you know in your heart you're doing the right thing to try and save this kid, but then he's getting abused more and nobody's doing anything
and
about
at one
it.
point it was what was it? One of the guys at the welfare office or something noticed too, or something like that.
There's a part where they go in there and they have to go through security before.
Yeah, and he watches the kid walk by.
He sees the kid and he looks at him like, damn, that kid's getting abused. You could clearly see that. And on his way out, I believe, he lifted his shirt and showed him, like, very briefly, like, walking by that he
No, he
was
bumped
covered.
into something.
Was it?
He bumped into the edge of the table and he was hurting his arm, and he put his hand on his arm and you could see all the marks on his arm.
I thought he said he literally lifted it like this and, like, was showing
I
him.
guess to rub his arm because he hit something. It must have been really bruised up and touched something and it
I
hurt.
could have swore he said the kid was showing him. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's you're right. I don't know. But
that was early on when we were watching it.
Yeah, it was. There's so many things that happened. But so the guy that's a security guard is trying to fully get, like, hey, this kid is getting abused. And then they're like, well, we're clocking out in 10 minutes. It's Friday, so, like, we can't get any overtime for this. So we'll see if we can do something next week, half-ass pushing it. Or here's all the information, you can do it yourself. Like, how is that a thing?
Yeah.
You don't think there's something wrong with that?
And they wouldn't let them follow through with a lot of stuff
Mm-mm.
in a lot of situations.
But my problem is, it's so clear that he is getting abused. It's not like he has one or two bruises. Like, there's a point in the story where the teacher said it was Mother's Day. It was, like, right before he died. And he did the Mother's Day project in school where they had to hold up something and they take a picture and they send it home, which was, like,
and
stuff
you could see him all beat up in that.
You could see he is so beat up to the point, like, I think he says he fell off his bike, but that is clearly not what happened.
Which also, though, like, blows my mind because, like, at that point when a kid comes into school that beat up, you would think they would be, like, not only asking him questions, but, like, go to the nurse.
I mean, he could have been going to the nurse, but remember when she brought it up to the brought it up to the principal. She said she wanted to do something. He goes, we don't do that. He said, we don't
investigate.
We don't investigate. You can call. That's all we could do. She said, can I take pictures? Can I do this? Because she's concerned, and it's like, you only can do so much. Like, so it's just, it blows my mind that, and there's multiple photos of it that were taken from, like, the family.
Yeah, they got
and
a good amount of shots of it.
Yeah, so how is it that this
him with,
kid
like, a
was
fat
not
lip, him with a black eye,
never
like,
taken away?
All kinds of
ever.
photos, yeah.
How? Because originally, so the whole story it pans out is originally he was with his uncle and his uncle's partner. They're a gay couple. And the mother didn't want to have the kid, and they were like, hey, we'll take care of him. And immediately, like, they said, 3 hours after the kid was born, she was calling up, like, oh, this kid's pissing me off already, come take him.
Yeah, and then she eventually had, like, 3 more kids.
Yeah, at least 2 that I know of.
Or she had kids prior.
I don't know what the order was.
Or something like that, because there were older kids.
They're older than him, I think.
Yeah.
So she didn't want the kid, they took him, and then I believe they were found to be unfit because they were a gay couple, and the grandfather of the family was being very, like, anti, like, homosexual stuff and was, like, super weird. So he went to go live with the aunt, I believe, like her sister, wasn't it, for a while?
I think so.
I think
for a short period.
And then eventually they couldn't take care of him, so he went to live with his mom again.
Yeah.
And that's where the abuse started happening. They didn't have him for very long.
8 months.
Yeah.
I think within 8 months.
Within 8 months, they killed him.
Yeah.
That's disgusting.
But it, like, and then if you get called in by child services, like, or child services gets called in that many times in that short of a period, and it's only about one kid, and the other kids are fine, and they just got that kid. I don't know. It's all just way too, like, it'll make you real angry because you'll be like, really? Like, that's the most obvious thing ever. This is the most obvious thing ever. That's the most obvious thing ever.
Well, the thing is, in this, they want to sue the caseworkers because there's technically 2 that go to the house, I believe. The older woman.
Well, they wanted to charge him.
That's what I'm saying. Sorry, they wanted to charge them.
Like 4 or 5.
There's a newer woman. I can't remember her name. I think it's like Susan or something. Then there's the older lady who was on the phone with them.
Yeah.
And then there's the guy who's like the manager of the newer person, and then the guy that owns the not owns it, but is like, I don't know, whatever you would call it, the head honcho of that. They all barely did anything.
They barely did anything. Some people you can see, like, maybe care a little bit about their job to an extent, but due to the amount that everybody has and the volume they do
they get
show.
So much.
The same thing with how easy it is to get bad PR for an accident with a police officer.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. Like, there is going to be negligence with this much dense volume.
It's a lot. They have like 300 cases.
Yeah, but they're showing there was a little bit of extra negligence, too, on top of it. On top of just the regular, like, each caseworker has 30, 40 cases or whatever a person, you know.
I don't know, just from experience, like, anytime I see somebody kind of brush something like that, I'm like, I want to investigate it more. Like, between, like, forensic files and shit we've been through, I'm like, as soon as
yeah, I mean, because, like, we're used to thinking everything's mad sus. Like, looking at somebody like, nah, I don't trust you. You're mad sus. Like,
but
for everything.
Most of the time, I'm right, so I stand by it. So the caseworker that I want to talk about is the older woman, because at one point, Gabriel has he has a caseworker either coming to his house, or he has, like, a teacher, homeschooling. He has somebody at the house, and they call a hotline because he has a bunch of notes saying he wants to kill himself. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And then the mom...
Yeah, and then they never ask the kid nothing. They always talk to the parents.
Yeah, they never ask anything. The person who calls is in the house with them, hands the phone to the mother, and the person from CPS or whatever it is like, oh, when did he do this? Oh, that was a while ago. He probably doesn't want to kill himself now. But, like, what fucking 8-year-old kid knows about suicide and is talking about how they want to kill themselves and die?
Well, and then, so...
That's enough for you to say, well, okay, he doesn't want to do it now?
Yeah, and I get it that in some senses, like, we know that kids exaggerate, or they lie, or they do this,
well,
or they do that.
everybody says, yeah.
But it's still, like, when you get this many calls about one kid, and you see the kid's obviously, like, in a bad situation, like, it's pretty easy for them to at least finally, like, chime in their head, like, hey, I should look at this.
Yeah, but
it just never goes
if
there.
I was, like... and it could also be because of, like, the situation he's in. Obviously, the mom has him in a bad neighborhood. I don't know what their backstory is because they didn't get too much into that, to be honest with you. I kind of wish they let us know a little bit more about really what was going on with that family.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that they did that kind of, I don't know, I feel like they could have went in more in depth in certain areas than they did in others because of that.
Well, because it seems like they go on her backstory a little bit, and they say that she was gang raped and she was involved with, I don't know, like, either drug dealers. It looks like she was on drugs, for sure.
Well, yeah, it does, and she gains a lot of weight as soon as she gets locked up.
Mm-hmm.
First time, like, in a couple weeks, when she goes to her first little pre-hearing thing, like, she is, like, putting on the pounds.
But the pictures you see of her, she looks so extremely, like,
shot,
sickly skinny when you first see her in pictures. And then you see her there, and she's, like, waking, which is, like, normal, especially for people who stop doing drugs. Like, once you don't do the drugs anymore, you instantly gain your weight back, if not more. And it's, like, a completely different person. But she's got, like, the chola outline lips, so that's something.
One thing that was, like, kind of weird when you watch it is the contradicting aspect of, like, they're charging for social workers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, partway through the case, it almost cost them the case because apparently they find out that the police and the police department have an entire investigation, a 3-year-long investigation on this kid that they'd never brought up, and they just hid it, never said anything about it, and, like, weren't going to give him the whole report.
No.
So he had to get, like, had to go and file a complaint with a judge and do the whole thing to get the report
just
from the
to get
police
the report.
station, which is kind of weird. So, like, if that's the case, and they even did an investigation, and if the police department did a 3-year investigation, and they still were negligent, then how are you going to charge only, or try to charge only the 4 social workers?
No. And I don't think they should have gotten anything crazy. I think that at least their top manager, because he's the one overseeing everything, that he should have paid a healthy, big fine. Like, they all should have been fined a decent amount of money. I know that doesn't do anything, but they did this to set an example more than anything. They didn't do it because they truly thought they were going to get those, at least in my opinion. I think they did it to try and set the standard and to make an example out of the situation, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, you clearly can just tell, like, just as a whole, this stuff, since it doesn't happen and become a big, like, nationwide case like this, they put a lot of this stuff aside and just tuck it away and don't care and just keep moving along, because now that it did become a big trial, then this all happened.
Yeah. So the boyfriend what's crazy is it's like 240 pounds, and the kid's like what, like 50 pounds.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So like the
Big
moment he
dude.
hits him, he
He's
just
like-
destroys him. It's disgusting.
He's like Rikishi, but without the goatee and the little.
And
braid.
the good personality, yeah. So he gets set up with what? He gets a death, right? What's it called? Words are hard right now.
What are you talking about?
What is his sentence?
Oh, he gets sentenced to death.
Okay, that's what I was saying.
You were like, he gets a death, and I'm like, what do you
No,
mean?
he gets sentenced to death, and then she gets the
Life.
rest of life with no chance of parole.
Yeah.
And like he was abusing and making all these things happen, and I'm very on the fence about the death penalty, but I'm all for life in prison to some degree. I get like very like, oh, people are paying for them to be in jail, but I'm also like, you should deal with this for the rest of your life instead of dying right away. With him, it was so weird to me that she wasn't facing the same sort of charges.
Yeah, when you're the mother, you're the one who's in responsibility for this kid, not the boyfriend.
No.
You obviously did a lot of damage.
Yeah.
They're showing. Granted, you might have not dealt the killing blows. You might not have been as strong as he did.
But she was abusing him.
But you were in it the whole way through.
They show some text messages that they have where it's clearly like she's the one leading some of the abuse. There's a point where she's leaving him in a freezing shower to abuse him, and she's texting him about that. So it's not like he just was the only one physically abusing him. He might have been the one to be throwing the punches, but she's also locking him up in the thing.
Yeah, and I'm not taking his side at all by
No.
saying that he's not the one who was responsible. He came into a relationship and then got involved with violence with this kid.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as I'm concerned, he's the partner in crime. She's the main head honcho. But they both should have been facing
the
death,
same charges.
You know,
they should have had the same exact charges.
100%.
100%. Because no matter what, like at first they were going into the court cases together, but she was freaking out on him so much and would be like, "Why are you lying? Why are you saying this?" And acting
everything
crazy.
that she does throughout the whole aspect after her arrest, basically makes her seem even more. This dude doesn't say a word after his arrest.
You don't see him
ever.
talk at all.
Never says a word.
You do see her in when she's moving from cell to cell at one point, freaking out on them.
Yeah.
And then they try to say that I don't know if they said that she was slower or she. What were they trying to say?
No, like that she dropped out of school and this and that. Her brain wasn't as developed. Like she had a different mentality of a younger person.
But they were
because
saying
of
for the court case that they were doing it this way because there was something with her.
Oh, for mental, trying to make it so
she was perfectly capable of talking and doing everything else in the clips that we saw. So, like, I don't know how you're going to try and claim that at the same time. And then she has the nerve to make a fucking statement at the end of this goddamn show to her kids and her family, and she apologizes for what she did, and she says, I'm sorry for what happened to Gabriel. I love Gabriel. I wish he was here. Yeah, it's a half-ass. The way she's talking is like bullshit. And then she has the nerve to say that she loves her other kids, and she hopes that one day they'll come to their senses and come to her. As if that's a fucking thing, that they need to come to their senses because their mom is an abusive psychopath. No, your kids, deserve for you to, I'm saying that you can grow and become a better person, but if you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail, I'm sure you're going to change in development, maybe, in some way.
Yeah, I don't.
What your kids deserve are a better fucking mother who isn't going to kill their fucking sibling, and what they deserve is for you to, prove yourself to them. You can't just say that they'll find, their path to you, you fucking awful
you'll
human.
Come to your senses. You'll come to me and be like, what do you mean? Last kid that did that got killed. What are you talking about?
That's the most narcissistic, disgusting thing for you to make a statement and an apology, and then you expect your kids to come to you like that.
Look, I feel you on that.
When the kids made their statements, I was sick to my stomach. Obviously, they felt bad. They were talking like they felt guilty, but it's not their fucking fault. They're children. You know what I mean? They obviously, I don't know if they were getting abused, but from what it sounds like is if Gabriel even wanted to play with them, then he would get abused by them.
Yeah, he was like the redheaded stepchild of the group type deal.
I'm so angry about this woman, and he was sentenced to death already, right?
He was sentenced to death, and they didn't really try to pull the sympathy card with him at any moment, but they definitely did with the mother a lot. They really tried to kind of give some kind of justification to why she should have gotten life versus sentenced
Yeah,
to
but
death.
where's his backstory? Where's his backstory of him being a sad, like, traumatic thing that she went through? They never give you that. They only say that he's a security guard and he's so nice, so it's not like him. Like, there's one lady who says that.
Yeah, and, like, there was only that aspect of his past. They didn't have any other information for him. Otherwise, all they had to show for the mother was like, oh, well, you know, she had a bad childhood. She's not mentally this, mentally that. But then they were constantly throwing stuff that was not in their favor of what they were saying. Not at all. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but that's not like mental issues as much as that is common hood rat. Like, just like common redneck or common anything else. If you're like a half not educated person in a poverty stricken area and you're like involved in crime most of your life or in bad situations,
I'm not saying
sometimes
I'm not
sketchy.
saying like bad things don't happen to people with traumatic past. Like, we're not saying that at all.
People don't say that they're just mental.
But we're not going to say because of that you go and you kill your kid.
Yeah,
and the whole thing was they were talking about it being premeditated, like murder, I guess, or the intent to kill him. And it's this whole debate on if it was an accident, if it was real. I don't know. It's a whole big thing. Point of the story is it's a very interesting documentary that we're obviously heated about. I will say, like, the pictures of him are very graphic because they are clearly the pictures of him. So that was a little bit hard for me at first, but I mean, the story is worth watching in my opinion.
Yeah, and I guess the perspective that we're trying to put off is like, we're like considering that these are like evil people. Like, we're not even saying like, oh, these guys had some mental issues or this. No, this is just like a documentary about two evil people, and it's really fucked up.
It's really fucked up.
Yeah, but it's really a compelling thing to watch. There's a lot of, like we were saying earlier in it, there's a lot of just filler stuff.
Yeah, that's why I'm gonna give it an 8 because the other 2 marking down is because of all the LA Times and bullshit that. Like,
yeah. See, I'm gonna give it a solid. I'm gonna give it like a 7 on that end because there was a lot of stuff that, like, if they could have filtered it in better and spread it out, maybe they could have got me better with it. But the driving you out of something to totally go out of context and be like, and we know this is what's been happening. This is the guy that's been investigating it. But have you heard about the LA Times? They're great.
Yeah.
Like dumb stuff like that? Nah.
There's definitely stuff we missed in here, too, that we didn't cover. So I would recommend checking it out. It's on Netflix. Like I said, it's like 6 episodes. So
a lot of people that they go into with the investigations, a lot of that's really worth checking out and seeing how they went about being able to get the charges they wanted on these.
Well, they also interview a lot of the police department, the fire department, like all these people, so it's really interesting.
Well, that's a lot of the whole point that they're trying so hard is because they know they're going to arrest them. They know you can go to jail for this, but they want the maximum charges on these people. I mean, this is like evil. You don't want the chance for these people to come out and go again. So that's the drive behind the investigation in this docu-series, basically, is the whole striving for that charge. Very interesting.
Yeah. You want to talk about the movie we watched?
Yes, and to put it on a lighter note, we watched a movie called Extraordinary. And you hated the idea of watching it.
Well, because the trailer looks so bad.
No, it looks great.
And my thing is, like, I have a very, like, blunt, dry, like, sense of humor. You can tell all the time I sound like I'm being a cunt, but it's just me. Like, that's my sense of humor.
But at the same time, this is very dry.
And, well, that's the thing. I like dry humor, but the trailer looked so bad to me, I wasn't interested. And I was like, just put on the movie, I don't care. And I loved it.
Yeah, it was really fun.
I loved it.
Basically, it's got Will Forte's in it. I don't know any of the other actors.
The woman was amazing. What was her name?
Oh, the main lady, Maeve Higgins. She plays Rose Dooley.
She was fantastic.
And basically, she's a woman who has supernatural abilities. She can, like, see and talk to dead people or whatever. And she's got to save a possessed girl. And she's a driving instructor. And when she was younger, she and her father were like a paranormal fighting duo. And there was an accident and she killed her dad. So she does not do this anymore. And she's just a driving instructor. And basically, it's the whole story of how she comes back into facing her fears of, you know, her abilities and fighting to save this girl.
Yeah. Very good. You know, she starts off right away that obviously she doesn't want to be involved with the paranormal aspect, and she goes into her similar routine every day of coming home from work, sitting on her yoga ball, eating yogurt, listening to her messages, and she's got like 12 messages about these paranormal things that are happening, but they're all such comedic ways of things happening. Like, you see it later in the movie.
Good, yeah.
There's like a haunted trash can, and then like a haunted like appliances and weird things like
and then,
that.
Like, it's not like the device is necessarily haunted. They might be teasing you with it or doing that. Like, they're all different stuff. Like,
and she also at one point like shows you videotapes that she has with her father from their paranormal like duo stuff.
Yeah, they show these old clips of the dad being like, "Are ghosts evil?
In like his little
do ghosts
den.
have emotions?"
Yeah,
you know, like things like
it's
that.
It's like a super cute den that's all detailed out, and it's just really like it plays on all the ghost stories that you know from like film and you know in general, but it's witty and charming. So the main premise is she goes to save this girl, like we were saying earlier.
Yeah, basically what happens is this guy, him and his daughter are being tormented by his dead wife.
Bonnie.
Like, he has an ability to see the wife.
Yeah,
so,
he can
like,
see and hear her.
He's another one that has the ability, so he's panicking, and the daughter's like, "Yo, why don't you call that old ghost hunting lady?" You know? And basically he goes on a driving instructor course and then confesses the whole situation. Yeah. And
she dips out. She's like, "I'm not doing this."
Yeah. And then at the same time, now, this old rock star guy who only had one hit wonder, who is played by Will Forte's character, he moved all the way out to this country and has a castle out there. And basically, like, he lives at this castle and he sold his soul to the devil, and he's, like, doing all these rituals out of this, like, crazy satanic book, trying to, like, capture a virgin and sacrifice him so he can make another hit album and get all his talent back and stuff. And it's really just, like, over-the-top silly. Like, he's so funny.
His chanting is so dumb. The staff he has looks like a big penis.
Yeah, and, like, he, like, irons, like, devil patches on his cape and stuff. And it's really funny. Like, his character's great.
Yeah. So he goes to hunt for a virgin because the virgin he has explodes. And
you levitate the virgins, like, levitate it, and if you wake the virgin, that spontaneously combusts.
Yeah,
it's so funny.
It's so crazy. And you also see that in the videotape too that she shows on her father's story. So basically the man that she takes the driving course with, his daughter is the virgin.
Yeah.
And she's like levitating, and he calls her, and she comes to the house and is trying to help him save the daughter, essentially.
Yeah,
is the premise
and
of the
what's
story.
weird is awkwardly the whole time she thinks like she may be able to like hook up with this guy.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of awkward because the whole time you're like, obviously.
Are they or are they not? Like,
yeah, the whole time you're like, well, obviously this dude at first has no interest in this lady and is just trying to talk about this whole situation, but she the whole time is like, maybe I could go out with this guy.
Yeah.
And she has no interest in using her powers really, but maybe trying to act like she will to hang out with this guy. It's so funny and stupid, but like it's good. It's
kind of like a you want to make out what like kind of moment. You know what I mean? Like they do banter like that, which is really cute. So she has to get some like ectoplasm to like save the girl.
My god, yeah.
And it's the most disgusting
It's so
thing.
gross.
But it's funny because he keeps making things like, oh, like The Exorcist or oh, like Ghostbusters. She's like, never heard of it, never seen it. Like every time she
she acts like she's never heard or seen anything in her whole life.
I don't know. Her sense of humor is what I think made this movie for me. Like the other characters are great and stuff, but how dry and like witty and the way she delivers stuff is really good. Like that character I really liked a lot.
Yeah, between her and Will Forte, they're like
yeah. So she goes on the mission to get like the ectoplasm to like save the girl and stuff, and the way that they go about it is like so
like
gross.
She's got to make the ghost go into the dad's body, and then like she has to get them to release their spirit, and then he like throws up all this like super gross stuff.
Just look like jizz.
Yeah, it's so nasty. Like right into a bunch of jars, and they have to collect it, and then they have to rub it in the face of his daughter.
Yeah.
And then it's gonna like it was the whole idea is so funny.
Yeah.
It's stupid, but the way they like go on the whole like wild goose chase thing to do it's fun.
Yeah, I really liked it.
The one old lady comes out like and her trash can's haunted by the husband.
Yeah.
and then the husband like possesses the guy and like is like a total perv and
yeah,
like,
he's like flirting with Rose.
yeah,
It's
it's so funny.
Yeah, so it's a very like unique take for a story like this, and you know me, I love comedic horror stuff. It obviously isn't like super scary, but there's a couple things that are like, oh, that's kind of weird, like, you know what I mean? But
yeah, I just thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it's just like a silly
it's a fun,
movie,
silly movie,
and it's like an hour and a half.
We watched it on iTunes.
Same with Sea Fever. They were both hour and a half movies, so
Yeah.
you can watch them real comfortably. They're not super long or anything like that.
I think that I don't really have negatives.
For this movie?
Yeah.
What would you give this movie?
Maybe like an 8.
Yeah, I would say I'm gonna give it.
You can give it a higher score, aren't you? Give it a 9.
No, I'm gonna
Yes,
give it an
you are.
8.5.
See, higher.
Yeah, I
That's
knew I
fair.
was gonna give it higher because I right away watched the trailer and I was all over this movie,
Yeah.
and you did not like it. And
No,
it was
I love
exactly what I thought it was gonna be, and I enjoyed it the whole time.
I think it has replay value. Like, I'd watch it again.
Yeah, especially like the whole end scene with the demon and Will Forte like trying to, do his satanic mastery and practice the dark arts. It was so funny too because he's spying on Rose at one point.
Yeah.
And she's doing her magic and he doesn't know nothing about it. He's like, she's practicing some form of dark arts type deal. So I was like, yes, he said dark arts. I love all the like goofy like ways he references things or says things is just silly, but it's cool.
Yeah, but
8.5 for me. Yeah, I'm holding down on that.
Yeah.
We were close for everything though, for the most part.
Was there anything else you want to talk about?
As far as like movies and shows, that's it. There is a movie I want to watch for the next one, and we'll get into that next week. And that's the 1BR, I think it's called.
I haven't heard of that.
It's like a psychological thriller about a girl who moves into an apartment complex. Seems really cool. So we'll get into that though next week. We'll make this one a shorter one. I feel like, especially because of the darkness of the Gabriel Fernandez one. I was like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah, that was a lot.
We had to real quick lift the spirits and go right into extraordinary.
But definitely check all of them out because those were good all the way through.
Yeah, check all of them out. And there's a lot of newer stuff apparently that's getting released all within this month as far as movies and stuff goes. So we'll have a lot more to talk about within the next few weeks,
Yeah,
especially
a
if
lot of
we're still
non-theater
stuck
stuff.
here.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that isn't going to theater. It's coming right to digital, so that'd be good. Well, thank you guys for listening, and if you guys want to hear more of our previous episodes, we have our own website, which is podcastrecently-released.com. That's a tongue twister. You can find all the ways to listen to us on there, which you could do directly through the website, through Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify. What else are we on? Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
That's all a lot.
Stitcher. We're on everything. So it's right on the homepage there. You can also find links to shops. So if you want to check out Joe's web store, he's got some cool Animal Crossing pins on there right now. 2 for $12, really, really cute wood ones. And that's joebotshop.com. You could also find that directly through our main site. My shop, lewisstardust.com, has my Vampirella comics and a bunch of other stuff on there with the code at home. You could save some coin on there. And other than that, you guys will see us next week. So thanks for tuning in.
See you next week, guys.
Thanks for listening to yet another episode of Podcasts for the Recently Released. If you want to peep some of our older episodes, we've got a ton of them. Just check us out on podcastfortherecentlyreleased.com. We've got merch, older episodes, links for other ways to listen to us, and more. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Don't let your meatloaf. Stay safe out there, guys.